They do not ask permission. They do not promise to stay. Yet when they leave, something inside us never grows back the same way again. Arav used to believe that life was simple if you followed the rules. Study well, work hard, be kind. Things would fall into place. That belief stayed with him until the night he stood alone outside a hospital, watching rain wash the city lights into long, broken lines, and realized that no rulebook had prepared him for loss. His mother, Mira, had always told him that love was not loud. It didn't shout or demand itself in small, ordinary moments. In a glass of warm milk placed quietly near your bed. In a shawl adjusted gently over your shoulders while you slept. In silence that understood you better than words ever could. Arav grew up in that kind of love. Their house was small, but it carried warmth in every corner. His father had passed away when Arav was 9, leaving behind memories that felt incomplete, like half-written sentences. From that day on, Mira became both parents. She stitched clothes late into the night, her fingers rough but steady, humming old songs that spoke of hope and patience. Arav would pretend to sleep, listening to her voice float through the thin walls, believing that as long as she sang, everything would be okay. Years passed. Arav grew taller. Responsibilities grew heavier. Dreams became quieter. He earned a job in another city, one that promised a better future but demanded distance in return. Mira smiled when he told her, pride shining through her tired eyes. She never once asked him to stay. Go, she said. Live the life you deserve. He left with a suitcase full of clothes and a heart full of guilt he didn't know how to name. At first, he called every day. Then every week. Then only when something reminded him of home. Mira never complained. She always said she was fine. She always asked if he was eating well. She always ended the call the same way. Take care of yourself. Arav told himself this was normal. This was growing up. Until one evening, his phone rang while he was stuck in traffic, surrounded by honking horns and impatient faces. It was his neighbor from back home. The voice on the other end trembled as it spoke. Your mother collapsed this morning. Time slowed. Sounds faded. The world narrowed to that one sentence. He reached home 2 days later. The house smelled the same, but it felt hollow, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Mira lay on the hospital bed, thinner than he remembered, her skin pale but peaceful. Tubes and machines surrounded her, blinking softly like they were afraid to disturb her rest. When she opened her eyes and saw him, she smiled. You look tired, she whispered. That broke him. He held her hand, feeling how light it had become, and for the first time in years, he cried without shame. He apologized for every missed call, every delayed visit, every moment he chose comfort over presence. Mira listened quietly. When he finished, she squeezed his hand with what little strength she had left. Don't carry regrets, she said. Carry memories. Those were the last clear words she spoke to him. She passed away 3 days later, just before sunrise. The hospital room filled with a silence that felt heavier than noise. Arav stood frozen, unable to accept that the woman who had been his entire world was now only a memory. After the rituals, after the relatives left, after the condolences faded into distance, Arav stayed back in the house. He wandered through rooms filled with echoes. Every object told a story. The old clock that still ticked, refusing to acknowledge time, had moved on. The kitchen shelf where she kept spices labeled in her neat handwriting. The chair near the window where she used to sit every evening, waiting for nothing in particular. One afternoon, while cleaning her cupboard, Arav found a small box tucked behind folded saris. Inside were letters, all addressed to him, all unopened. His hands shook as he picked the first one. It was dated the day he left for his job. In it, Mira wrote about how proud she was. About how the house felt quieter without his footsteps. About how she talked to his childhood photo every night like it was him. She wrote about missing him, but never wanting to burden him with that truth. Another letter spoke of her illness, months before it became serious. She wrote that she was scared, but more scared of distracting him from his dreams. One letter ended with words that burned into his heart. If one day I am not there, don't think I was alone. I had you in my thoughts every moment. That was enough. Arav sank to the floor, clutching the letters like they were lifelines. He realized then that love had been surrounding him all along, quietly, patiently, without demand. And he had been too busy chasing the future to notice. Weeks later, Arav returned to the city, but he was not the same man who had left. He called people more often. He listened longer. He stopped rushing through moments as if life were a task to be completed. On his birthday, he cooked one simple meal his mother used to make. He placed a small plate near the window, just like she used to do for him when he was late coming home. He didn't know if she could see him. He didn't know if she could hear him. But he spoke anyway. "Thank you," he whispered, "for loving me the way you did." Outside, the wind moved gently through the trees, and for a moment, Arav felt the same warmth he had felt as a child, lying in bed, listening to his mother hum. Some loves never leave. They change form. They become strength. They become silence that holds you together when everything else falls apart. And long after the pain softens, long after the tears dry, that love continues to guide you, quietly reminding you that you were, and always will be, deeply loved.